This diagram denotes the journey from matter into measurement. It contains 7 levels on which matter is meaningfully distinguished: substance, self-interaction, signal, state transition, computation, coding, and logic. The first level on which matter is distinguished is substance. The only distinction that exists at this stage is non-separation versus separation. The remainder of the system is understood as degrees of separation. The second level on which matter is distinguished is self-interaction. A process is a change. An operator is a change agent. The inside-outside dichotomy is an operator-prescribed binary decomposition. The state is the system under consideration pre-process. A state transition is the process of changing the initial state into the next. A boundary is the separation of the inside from the outside. Binding torsion is action that maintains the boundary. An object is geometry resulting from the instantiation of a boundary. The center is the point inside the boundary, minimizing binding torsion. Reduction is deviation of a boundary towards the center. Amplification is deviation of a boundary away from the center. A waveform is a finite bounded entity with 2 classes of processes, reduction and amplification. A wavefront is the outer boundary of a waveform. A form is a waveform prior to the instantiation of its processes. Observation is the process which transitions a waveform into its successor. The next distinction is signal. An emission is a state transition displacing matter away from the center. Absorption is a state transition displacing matter towards the center. Transmission is the process of an emission becoming an absorption. Emitter, absorber, transponder correspond to that which is capable of emission, absorption, and transpondence. A signal is an emission extending beyond its associated boundary. A language is a naturally arising set of meaningful sounds and sound combinations, along with their associated symbols, syntax, and meaning. A symbol is an irreducible component of written language, such as a letter or number. Syntax is a meaningful combination of symbols associated with a language. Data is a symbol or symbols derivative of signal. Information is data corresponding to some aspect of form. Coherence is the property of information-preserving transmissions. The fourth level on which matter is distinguished is the state transition. Decomposition. The whole, broken down into proper parts, but still existing as a whole. Superposition. Operator-prescribed decomposition associated with a particular state. Fixation. Operator-inputted change to one aspect of decomposition. Spatial. Relating to the 3 in 3 plus 1. Temporal. Relating to the 1 in 3 plus 1. Localization. Fixation of a spatial observation. Crystallization. Fixation of the temporal observation. Amplitude. Primary waveform correlate of the spatial. Frequency. Primary waveform correlate of the temporal. Simulation. Unreduced superposition of possible states. The fifth level on which matter is distinguished is computation. A property is syntax associated with observations derived from substance. An identity is a particular list of properties. The cycle is the basic structure of processes. A computer is an entity possessing at least one cycle capable of being broken down into distinct steps. Computation is the instantiation of at least one step of a computer's cycles, understood as at least potentially resulting in data. A machine is a computer with at least one macroscopically moving component, and a robot is a machine whose primary function is motion. An input is data given prior to computation. Output is data obtained following a computation. An operation consists of changes to either or both the syntactical representation or cycle of an identity. An operator is that which carries out an operation. A quantum mechanical operator results in changes to a waveform. The next level on which matter is distinguished is coding. A principle is oughtness. What a code ought to do. A rule is a syntactical extension of a principle. A domain is where a rule applies. An ordered union is a structure consisting both of operations and their interrelations. A code base is a set of operations implementable in a machine. An algorithm is a set of operations expressed in a code base. Pseudocode is an ordered union intended for algorithmic implementation expressed in a language. A game is a process whose algorithm is given syntactically and which terminates in a win or loss state, with possible intermediary rankings, such as first runner-up. The process of the game is ongoing until the sufficient conditions for game termination are met. The win state generally corresponds to a greater degree of rule compliance. The final level on which matter is distinguished is logic. An axiom is an operator-assigned rule. Not is a synthetic separation relative to an identity. A synthetic process is an operator input-controlled ordered union of a set of axioms, capable of giving at least one output. An expression is an output of a synthetic process. An expression generated by a synthetic process is true if it can be directly generated by the axioms of the synthetic process, false if it implies the negation of a true expression, or not false if it cannot be directly generated by the axioms of the synthetic process, but does not negate true expressions. The first distinction, substance, asserts a basic dualism underpinning all emergent contrasts. The second distinction is self-interaction, motion associated with a single substance. The third distinction, signal, occurs when systems consisting of more than one part undergo a change between their constituent parts. The fourth distinction is state transition, the general decomposition of system changes. The fifth distinction is computation, machine-assisted synthetic decomposition. The sixth distinction is operator-designed particular ordering of machine-assisted decomposition, or coding. The seventh and final distinction is logic, which explicitly gives the form of true expressions and, in conjunction with sufficient mechanical data, provides a basic framework to recover distinctions 1 through 6.